If I could pick one of the most common questions that I get from people trying to start on YouTube, grow on YouTube, whatevs, it is going to be, I have put things on the internet, I have put things on YouTube, but I'm still not growing. I'm still not sure how to grow on this platform. I feel like I'm doing everything right, but I'm not growing. And I'm here to tell you that if you feel like you're doing everything right, but you're not growing, then you're probably not doing everything right. So buckle up, buttercups, because this is going to be like a masterclass, if you will, on how to grow on YouTube in 2022, 2023, and beyond. Because here's the thing, I've been on the YouTube platform since 2016, and while it has had changes, and while the algorithm has changed and the content has changed, it really doesn't change that much. So this advice is applicable regardless of when you're trying to do it. But if you're trying to grow on YouTube, these are things that you've got to know. Hey, howdy, hey, y'all, what is up? If you're new here, my name's Jessica. I'm pumped that you're here. And I'm real excited to talk about YouTube because it's one of my favorite topics. I need to reiterate what I said a second ago, in that if you feel like you're doing everything right and you're still not growing, it is definitely a you problem and not a platform problem. I see this all the time. People will be like, but I am doing whatever, right? Like whatever the strategy is. I am doing that. And then I go look at their channel and they're literally not doing that. Or they could be doing it better. Or they're thinking, oh, I am being consistent. Or I'm doing everything I know to do, but they just started a month ago. Like, there's a ton of scenarios where people think they're doing everything they could do, but they actually aren't. And that can be really hard. This is something where you're gonna have to be self-aware. But I can promise you that we can work through this together and you can totally grow on YouTube regardless of your niche, regardless of your equipment, regardless of anything like that. And honestly, that leads me straight into the first thing, and that is to pick a freaking niche. Y'all, I've said this 10,000 times, and you've probably heard me say it 10,000 times, but picking a niche on any platform is super freaking important. Now, I have a different opinion on this than I had maybe 3 years ago, so let me talk through that, but you do have to have a niche in some way, shape, or form. And when I say niche, I more so mean the person watching your video, the person wanting to watch your channel, than I mean the actual content or substance or whatever. I actually mean who wants to watch it, niche down, make sure you understand who that person is, and create content within that. And here is why this is so important. If YouTube doesn't know who you're trying to attract, if YouTube can't scan your channel and be like, oh, this person's content is for this group of people, then they can't do their job. The algorithm's literal job is to pair the right viewer with the right content. So if it doesn't know who your content is set up for, then it can't do its job. And then you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, I'm creating content, I'm being consistent, I'm doing all these things that you're talking about. But you don't realize that you haven't told YouTube who these videos should go in front of. And not only that, but we don't want to get in a situation where you've created a channel and let's say, you know, one video was for this person. Like, I'm gonna create a video for moms, right? Like that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna create a video for moms. But then the rest of my channel is like digital products and passive income and all of this stuff. And that video for moms does really well. YouTube picks it up, it does well, it goes and whatever. And then there's like an influx of moms that come into my channel, but they don't want to watch any of the rest of my content. We don't want to get in that scenario because then you're either forced to flip your whole content planner around or you are literally like working against yourself. So you've got to have a niche. Make me a promise that you're going to have a niche. Who are you trying to talk to? And get pretty specific. It's not all women. It's not all gamers. It's not all people who love tech. Like, get pretty specific with who you think these people are, and then your content can make sense within that. And in order to make sure that your content makes sense within the niche, you've got to have content pillars. So this is number 2 on the list of things that you really need to grow on YouTube in 2022. Content pillars. I promise you that this will help you so much when it comes to figuring out what you want to create content about, and when it comes to making sure that the content you're creating fits within the niche. If you're like, Jessica, what are content pillars? Well, I've talked about them before, but basically it is a list of 4 to 5, maybe 6 different kind of categories of content that you create for your niche. So I always like to use weird niches for my examples because I feel like it's not as easy for people to come to me in the comments and be like, yeah, but that works for you, but it doesn't work for me. So let's say that my niche is people who want to learn to grow a garden. I don't know. Let's go with it, okay? So people who want to learn to grow a garden, people who want to live off the land, if you will. So if we're looking at the content pillars for that, we might have actual tutorials, like how to grow things, right? We might have behind the scenes, which I recommend for everybody to have in their content pillars. So behind the scenes of actually growing a garden, of actually like plowing the land, of like whatever. Then there might be recipes or food of some sort. Now, that's not exactly what you're planning to do with the whole entirety of your channel, but it fits in because these people want to know what to cook with their food that they're growing. And then you might have a content pillar that is specific for the person who is in like an urban area and only has, a rooftop to grow their vegetables on. Or you might have a content pillar that is specific to people who have a little bit of land to grow their vegetables on. Then you might have a content pillar all about animals, like farm animals, because you're thinking, oh, well, if these people want garden, they also probably want like animals of some sort. So you can come up with a ton of content pillars that fit within your niche, and that's going to help you so much be able to be broad enough within your niche that you're not like niching yourself down so far and losing subscribers, but also burning yourself out. But it's also going to allow you to tell YouTube more of the people who would want to watch your stuff. They all still fit in that same top niche, but the content pillars are helping YouTube figure out what they're interested in. And honestly, it's just gonna help you so much figure out what kind of content you wanna create. Because let me tell you, when I tell you that I have spent the last 2 days trying to figure out my next 3 videos, I'm not even playing. Sometimes content is hard. Sometimes trying to figure out content is hard. And so if you have content pillars, it's gonna make it a lot easier. And yes, I do have content pillars, but sometimes it's still hard, but it'll make it easier, I promise. If you're wanting to grow on YouTube, you have got to be doing research within your niche on what is working, on what does well, on what people want to see. This can be a little bit hard to do because people tend to get in their heads about competition or watching what other people are doing or whatever, and I get that, but at the same time, you have to know what your niche wants to see. You have to know what works so that you can figure out a way to make yourself different, so that you can figure out a way to fit within that, so that you can figure out a way to make this all work for you. So researching what is working for your niche can happen in a ton of different ways. One, totally research on YouTube. You can actually go to YouTube, type in keywords, find channels that talk about those keywords, go to those channels, see what kind of content they're creating, see what works. You can obviously be a student or a watcher of your own niche and go subscribe to people within that niche and see what they're creating, see what does best for them, all kinds of things. But you can also go off the platform and see what's working on other platforms too, because odds are if it works on one platform, it's gonna work on another. It's just that the format has to be a little bit different. So if I go to TikTok and I find somebody who is in my niche or attracting my niche, and I see that when they do a certain type of video or a certain subject, that it always does really well, that's probably also gonna do well on YouTube, but I need to like reformat it, obviously for my own personality and what I'm wanting to do, but also for YouTube. And the same thing with Instagram or Facebook or like wherever you want to go do research, but do research and see what's actually working in your niche. Because what I see a lot is that people will be like, well, this is the kind of content I want to create. And that's fine. There's definitely a place for that. Like there's definitely a place for being like, this is the kind of content I want to create. And you can create your own genre of content on the platform that other people are then going to be like, I want to do something like that. You can totally do that. But you still need to know what's working. You still need to know what people care about. You still need to know what kind of content they want to watch or they want to consume. Because if you don't, you're just flying blind. It's like, back in the olden days, the early 2000s when I got my license and you were going to go on a trip if you didn't print the MapQuest instructions, you were probably not going to make it to your destination. It's just like that. It's just like that. If you don't understand the directions, if you don't understand the process, if you don't understand what's working, then you're not going to make it to where you're trying to go. So do some research on what is working in your niche. And thank the good Lord above that we have GPS now. Just, if you're too young for that MapQuest joke, reference, whatever, I don't even know how to feel about that. But it was a thing. All right, next thing's next. And this is really hard for a lot of people. And I get it. It's hard for me sometimes too. And that is to be consistent. Be consistent. Beconsistent. It doesn't work as well as be aggressive, but you get it. Be consistent. Be consistent. And this means at least once a week on YouTube. There should be no schedule on YouTube less than once a week if you're trying to grow on the platform, if you're trying to put the effort into the platform. And honestly, being completely honest, like if you're creating content, if you're putting in the time to create content to put on YouTube, because it is so much heavier than, let's say, putting content together for TikTok or Instagram, I don't know why you wouldn't at least do one time a week to know that it's going to work, rather than just doing what like you think is going to work for your schedule, because it's so much work. So why not put in, go full force into the work and actually put out the amount of content that YouTube is going to care about? Are there people who put out less content and grow? Absolutely. Are there people who are not super consistent and grow? Absolutely. But they are the exceptions to the rule, not the rule. And I need you to know that consistency is key on YouTube. So key. Once a week or more, hands down, all the time. It should never be a question. And consistency for a consistent amount of time. Being consistent for a few months after you have been inconsistent for a really long time is still not proving anything to YouTube that you want it to prove. So one of the students in one of my courses was like, hey, girl, I am being consistent. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do, and I'm getting burnt out, and YouTube is not picking up my videos, and I don't know what to do. And when I looked at her channel, she had been consistent for the last month or 2 months, but before that, her last video was a year ago. And then at that point, she was consistent for a few months. And then her last video before that was a year before that. And the way I explained it to her was, imagine you've got a boyfriend, and homeboy, he's not the greatest, okay? He doesn't treat you the best, but you have a boyfriend, okay? And you guys date for a few months, and then he breaks up with you. And he's like, sorry, peace, going to see other people, have a nice life. And you are just living your life, seeing other people and, whatever else. And then a year later, he comes back and he's like, I really love you. Can we get back together? And against your better judgment, you're like, yes, of course, that would be awesome. And you get back together and you're dating and everything's great. And then just a few months goes by and he's like, I'm joking. I really don't have the time to put into this relationship. I'm sorry. And then he leaves again. And again, you go back to dating other people and whatever else. And then he comes back again. And he's like, oh, I made such a mistake. I really love you. And you start dating him again because clearly you didn't learn your lesson the first time or the second. But you're really cautious. You're like, this boy is going to get bored here in about 12 seconds. And he's going to be off here chasing other people and not in this relationship. And I don't fully trust him. That is how YouTube feels when you are consistent and you drop off. And you're consistent and you drop off. And you're consistent and you drop off. They cannot figure out if they want to trust you or not. They can't figure out if you're in this relationship. They just think you're going to flake on them at any given moment. So if you truly want to grow on the platform, you've got to figure out a way to be consistently consistent. Not just consistent for short bursts of time, but consistently consistent, because that's going to work best. And I have 2 more things I want to talk about. And these next 2 things are probably 2 of the most important things we're going to talk about. But first, we need to chat about today's sponsor, and that is ClickUp. I felt like after I talked about consistency was going to be the most useful for you, because ClickUp is a project management tool, and it is how I keep up with my entire content calendar, with my content schedule, how I make sure things get done, how we keep up with the whole process, etc. And I could literally not be consistent with my content if I didn't have ClickUp as like a supporting role in my life. With ClickUp, you can have like lists and calendar views and boards and all the things. But when it comes to keeping up with my content calendar, I love to see the calendar view because like it's a calendar and I can see things much more visually. So what we do is we put in like sponsors, we put in things that have to get done on certain videos, things we want to promote on certain videos, all of that. And then every few weeks or so, I go in with a fresh batch of content and I plan out my content right here in a content calendar on ClickUp. Like you can see here, these are the notes I have for this actual video you're watching right now. I just put all the notes inside of ClickUp, and then once I'm done, I do a few things in here too to help keep everything in one spot. So I can change this from open to sent to editor to ready to edit by my team to ready to be uploaded, finalized, and scheduled, etc. Okay? So once something is finalized and scheduled, it turns a different color here on the content calendar. So I can keep up with the fact that something is done, I need to film, I need to edit, whatever the case is. And one of my favorite parts about ClickUp are the automations. And so because I have a team, once I select a certain status, I have automation set up where certain people get tagged to do the next step. So for me, if I'm done filming and I'm gonna send this to my team to edit it, I will change it to that status and then it will automatically alert my team. Like, hey, you have a new video to edit, here you go. Or when it's done and it's finalized and scheduled or completely edited, when I change it to finalized and scheduled, it's gonna tag my team to go ahead and chop out the short form content from that long form content and get the promos ready for social media and all the things. So when it comes to managing my content calendar, when it comes to being consistent, when it comes to being successful on YouTube or on my podcast or whatever, I, honest to Pete, could not do it without ClickUp. ClickUp is one of my favorite tools. If you've been here for a long time, you know that. You know how much I love them. And you can try out ClickUp for free because they're awesome like that. You can just go to heyjessica.com/ClickUp. I'll make sure I put that in the description below. But if you're looking for a way to stay consistent, to plan everything out, to keep everything buttoned up nice and neat, I highly recommend ClickUp. And thank you, ClickUp, for being so awesome and sponsoring this video. Can y'all see how bad this plant is? It's bad. I've watered it this morning, but it's not doing well. It's not doing well. Okay, I said a second ago I have two more things I want to talk about, and I totally do, and I do think they're some of the most important things we're going to talk about today. And so just rolling right along, I need to tell you that if you want to grow on YouTube, you have got to, absolutely important, so important, way more important than most people put on it, got to focus on titles and thumbnails. Titles and thumbnails are probably the most important part of growing on YouTube. And actually, the next thing I'm going to talk about is probably the most important part, but this is like high on the list. Titles and thumbnails are key for so many reasons. Obviously for keywords and things you've heard about before, but more importantly than that, they are what get your video clicked on versus other people's videos. So whether you're showing up in the homepage or subscription page or in search, the reason someone clicks on your video versus the other videos that are showing up in those same places is because of the title and the thumbnail. So if you are creating those as afterthoughts, you are not going to be successful. You're not going to grow on YouTube. I hate to use Mr. Beast as an example. I like Mr. Beast, no problem here. But I feel like everybody uses him as an example, and I feel like there's other creators doing it just as well, but for some reason he's always the one that everybody uses, so I hate to use him, but I'm gonna use him, okay? But there are a blue million quotes from Jimmy, aka Mr. Beast, talking about how important thumbnails are and how much time and money they spend on their thumbnails, because it is literally that important. Now, if you're just an everyday creator, I don't expect you to go out here and spend tons of time or tons of money creating thumbnails. That's actually not feasible at all, and I don't do that either. Like, I'm creating my own thumbnails, and my thumbnails get created while I'm sitting here filming the video. It's not like I'm going out of my way to film or create the thumbnail. but you have to put thought into it. You have to understand what is important about a thumbnail. What is going to make that thumbnail better than everybody else's? What is going to make it stand out? It can't just be a screenshot from the video and some random text. Like, it has to be methodical and thought out. It has to actually make sense. And what I like to tell people is that thumbnails need to invoke emotion. They need to invoke the emotion that somebody is feeling before they watch, is going to feel after they watch, or the emotion of what the actual heck is going on here. And that's really easy to do regardless of your content. That's why you see a lot of people, myself included, making like funny faces and then pairing that with text or whatever. So like for this video specifically, I want to feel confident. I want you to feel confident. I want you to feel confident that when you click on this video and once you watch this video that you're gonna understand how you actually grow on YouTube. So my thumbnail is going to say that. My thumbnail is going to give out the aura, the vibe, the whatever of confidence. So when I actually sit down to take the picture for the thumbnail, I'm gonna think about how can I display confidence. I need to be confident. I need to look confident. I need to be excited about what you're about to watch. And then I need to maybe use the text to help me convey that too. And titles work in a similar way. Titles also need to invoke emotion, make people feel like they're getting what they're needing, make people feel like they're getting what they're looking for, while also obviously telling YouTube where this video should go, where this video should be indexed, what keywords this video should be found for. Your titles and your thumbnails are so freaking important, and so many people miss the mark here. And last, but absolutely not least, probably most important, you have to create really good content if you want to grow on YouTube. I saw someone in a Facebook group the other day being like, hey, I noticed that this person and this person, big creator, don't put hardly anything in their description. Why is that? And someone answered and was like, because it doesn't matter. Because that's not what's important. The content being good is what's important. And so many times we miss that. So many times we forget that, or we don't think about it as heavily as we should. Your content has to be good. It can't just check a box. It can't be like, oh, I just created my video for the day, like that's good enough. No, that's not how this works. It actually has to be good. It actually has to serve the purpose it's trying to serve. And that doesn't mean your equipment. That doesn't mean really anything other than creating content that is delivering on the promise that you promised in the title and the thumbnail. Creating content that's going to deliver that result, or that's going to entertain in that way, or that's going to be the thing that people need. And especially like business owners who get started on YouTube, they just want to check a box. I'm going to talk about the 5 things that happened over here. I'm going to talk about these things that are going to get me found in search. And that's fine, it'll work, but it's not going to get you to grow. It's not going to get you more subscribers who really care about what you have to say, who want to come back every single time. You have to create really good content. And that's it. That is how you grow on YouTube in 2022 and beyond. That is how you grow. You pick a niche, you have content pillars, you do research and actually pay attention to what's working within your niche, within the platform, all of that. You're consistent. You make sure you're consistently consistent. You focus on thumbnails and titles, and you create really good content. All of that packaged together will get you to grow on YouTube. Now, if that sounds really overwhelming though, what you need to do is take it one step at a time. You don't have to do all of this at once. You don't have to be like, oh my gosh, well I have to, up my quality and I have to think about my thumbnails and my titles and blah, 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 because Jessica said so. No, pick one thing. Get really clear on that, get really good at that, and then move to the next. Pick a niche. Get really clear on your niche. Figure out your content pillars. Get really clear on those. Do some research. See what's working. Get really clear on that. There's a reason I put these in the order I did, by the way. Post videos. Work that consistency muscle. Get comfortable on camera, but also posting videos and being consistent. Then focus on titles. Then focus on thumbnails. Then focus on upping your quality and creating better content. Because all of these things together work together in like stepping stones. And so if it's really overwhelming, you don't want to do it all at once because then you're going to get, well, overwhelmed. You've got the Lincoln logs. It's time to build the house. Bye, y'all.